Hi, this is Neha from College Pond, and in this part of the video lecture series, I'm going to talk to you about the writing section of the TOEFL IBT. There we go. Our goal would be to learn about the different writing tasks. What are their formats, what exactly is required of you, etc. etc. We'll also be looking at several approaches to respond to these tasks, and we'll learn about the evaluation criteria, which is one of the most important things for you to understand. To delve deeper into it, let's understand that the writing section is designed to measure your ability to present your ideas clearly and concisely while writing in an academic setting. What this means is that the test actually expects you to write clearly and without any flaws. You are expected to write in a systematic, structured manner, and your topics will be related to everyday academic themes. So that's something that you'll have to keep in mind. There will be two tasks, and they will be called as the integrated writing task, which is the first task on your test, and the independent writing task. The integrated task basically means that you will need to integrate two of your English skills, your reading and listening, and then you have to present an essay. And the independent writing task actually requires you to showcase your proficiencies only in writing. So let's move ahead and try to understand this section in a better way. Now let's delve deeper into the first task. The first task actually is the integrated writing task. What it actually means is that you will be combining two of your skills. So the first skill is reading, so you will read a passage. You will get around 3 minutes to read this passage, so you'll have to quickly make sure that you write and take notes while you're reading as well. The second skill that you'll be using is your listening skills. So you'll be listening to a lecture, and probably when you're listening to this, you will take some notes, you will listen actively for meaning and all that. You will then write an essay summarizing the points made in the lecture. So you will have to have skills that that help you structure the points that you've just heard and just read. So that requires a little bit of training and a little bit of practice. The total time that you will have at your disposal is 20 minutes. So how do you distribute your work in those 20 minutes? Well, what you could do is you could take the first 5 minutes to think about the whole topic, ideate, make notes, think about how you're going to structure it in your mind. Once that is done, you could actually take around 10 minutes to write, or in this case, type the response out. Once you finish typing it out, you definitely need to factor in those last 5 minutes to be able to proofread your essay, remove any redundancies or remove any kind of a typo. So you definitely need to make sure that you keep time for that. Now let's look at an example of the integrated task. What you see in front of you is an actual passage from the TOEFL official guide by ETS. This is a short passage, and you will get around 3 minutes to read this. Take that time and read the passage for the next 3 minutes, and I'll see you at the other side. Now let's listen to a lecture on the topic that you just read about. Make sure you take some quick notes though.
You know, often in science, new findings force us to re-examine earlier beliefs and assumptions. And a recent study of meerkats is having exactly this effect. The study examined the meerkat's behavior quite closely, much more closely than had ever been done before. And some interesting things were found, like about eating habits. It showed that typically meerkats eat before they stand guard, so the one standing guard had a full stomach. And the study also found that since the sentinel is the first to see a predator coming, it's the most likely to escape, because it often stands guard near a burrow, so it can run immediately into the burrow after giving the alarm. The other meerkats, the ones scattered about looking for food, are actually in greater danger. And in fact, other studies have suggested that when an animal creates an alarm, the alarm call might cause the other group members either to gather together or else to move about very quickly, behaviors that might actually draw the predator's attention away from the caller, increasing that animal's own chances of survival. And what about people? What about some human acts that might be considered altruistic? Let's take an extreme case. Suppose a person donates a kidney to a relative, or even to a complete stranger. A selfless act, right? But doesn't the donor receive appreciation and approval from the stranger and from society? Doesn't the donor gain an increased sense of self-worth? Couldn't such non-material rewards be considered very valuable to some people?
Summarize the points made in the lecture, being sure to explain how they oppose specific points made in the reading passage.
This particular task is scored on a scale of 0 to 5. So 0 being the worst and 5 being the maximum points that you can score in this. Now, it's really difficult to score a 0 because for that you have to actually leave the template blank, okay, or you have to write in a different language probably. But students usually get somewhere between 3 to 4, 4.5, and that's something that you can definitely look forward to. 3 is kind of an average score which is expected in most universities, but somewhere around 3.5 to 4.5 would be a good target for all of you. When you look at the task criteria, what exactly are you supposed to do? You're supposed to accurately identify the requirements of the task. So, for example, in the integrated writing task, your requirement is to write up to 225 words or a little bit more than that. If you write below 150 words, you are not going to score any points in this, right? So you need to keep track of how many words you're writing. The good part is you will see the word count on your screen, so you don't have to worry about it. But you should really know how much time you need to kind of write so much. You need to do a lot of practice before you actually embark on this. Now, explain clearly all the reasons given by the professor in support of his opinion. Now remember, you're going to summarize the professor's opinion, and you're not going to summarize the passage, right? So you have to try and remember all the reasons that the professor gave. Now, when you're actually writing, you will be able to see the passage in front of you on the screen. The audio file will be played just once, but the passage will be visible to you throughout the time when you're writing actually. So that's an advantage. What you can do is you can make quick notes about the points when you're reading the passage for the first time, and when you're listening to the audio file, you can try and relate what points from the lecture are contradicting what is given in the passage, and I'll demonstrate this to you in a while. You should also mention how the professor's points cast a doubt or contradict the points made in the lecture, and this is where you need real skill. Sometimes what happens is students don't remember because they don't take ample notes when they are listening to the audio. What happens is they try to write each and everything when they are taking notes. Note taking, trust me, is an art. What you need to do is you need to take only the essential notes so that you can write down the points that are contradicting the passage, and you can focus on understanding the meaning as well. Another thing that you need to know is you need to be well organized and coherent in writing your points. You cannot start from point A, then go to B, then to D, and then to C. You can't do that. You have to have a nice, well-made structure to this, so that whoever's reading your essay should get a good feeling, right? They should understand it, they should not be confused. Finally, you should display good use of vocabulary, accurate use of vocabulary. You should have syntactic variety and appropriate tone. What does all this mean? Simply put, accurate vocabulary means that you know what are the words that you need to use. You're not going to unnecessarily use high-level words because that's not going to work, especially if you use them in the wrong context, that is. So use the words where you are sure of the meaning, right? And sure of the context as well. You can use idioms and phrases that shows the richness of your language, the richness of the range of your language. You can also show some syntactic variety. So syntactic variety is nothing but understanding different ways of writing, different styles of writing, as in simple sentences, complex sentences, and different ways of conveying meaning through these sentences. Also use the appropriate tone. In this case, your essay will fall under the formal category. So you will write in a slightly formal manner. You will not use contractions, or you will not really use anything which is kind of slang. So you have to steer clear of all these things. When I'm reading the passage during the 3-minute time frame that is given to me, I will actually make notes. Now, note that you will see the passage again later, but I'm not going to take my chances. I need to preserve that time, right? So in that 3 minutes, in those 3 minutes that will be given to me, I'll make sure that I at least jot down a few main points. So in this particular passage, I saw that the first line itself, or the topic sentence of the whole passage, said that altruistic individuals gain nothing for themselves. It meant that. It didn't say exactly that, but this was the topic sentence. This was the central idea of that passage. Then they also explained that idea using the example of people who donate organs. They definitely benefit others, but they don't receive any reward. So they don't receive any rewards is basically the same as they gain nothing for themselves. So that's one point actually. That's not 2 points essentially. So I clubbed them and I made that particular part as 1 point, right? Now, when I move ahead in the passage, I see that they have given a lot of space and time to the meerkat example. The altruistic individuals may even put themselves at risk. That is the point that they are making through the meerkat example, because there's a lot of detailing in that example, right? That example talks about how the sentinel meerkat is actually losing out because everybody else is out foraging for food, and this sentinel meerkat is just guarding. So he's basically the loser. He's sacrificing the food, and for what? Right? That's the point made in the passage. So I have put that in this particular category, main points made in the passage. The passage also talks about how those meerkats actually are in danger because they are the ones to raise the alarm. So when they raise the alarm, the predator can actually see them, right? So these are some of the points that essentially put together mean that altruistic individuals put themselves at risk. So if you are basically helping others, you are somewhere kind of sacrificing yourself, or you're not being true to yourself. So that's the sense that you get. Now once I have these points clear in my mind, now I can move to the audio file. Now please note, in this particular passage we had 2 points, but you may have passages where you can have around 3 to 4 points as well. That's not unheard of, right? So coming to the main points made in the lecture. Now this is where it gets tricky. When you're actively listening, a lot of times you are listening for meaning and you're trying to understand, what should I write? Should I write everything? Right? It's very tempting, right? When you're making notes, just write down everything. What if this is useful? What if that is useful? But you have to note that the question is about contradicting the points made in the lecture. So you have to specifically listen very carefully for the points that are actually not, directly opposing whatever is given in the lecture. So, for example, the lecturer says that altruistic individuals get non-material reward. Now this was not the first point she made, but I noted it down and I put it in front of this point because it directly correlates to that point. This was actually the second point that the lecturer made, but when I was listening to it, I just jotted down the points, and when I'm organizing my thoughts in the first 5 minutes, I'm actually putting the points in the right place now. So the lecturer said something like organ donors basically receive appreciation from people, and therefore their self-worth or self-esteem increases, and that is something that I can note down as a non-material reward. So this point is directly contradicting what is said in the passage. They get some reward, whereas here it says they gain nothing for themselves, right? So it's contradicting what is given in the passage. You have to specifically say these things out loud, right? The next thing is what we know as the meerkat example. The lecturer also gives a lot of time to this example and a lot of speaking space. So the altruists among the meerkats get to eat first before standing guard. So now here the lecturer is giving us some additional points or additional data which we didn't know before. So she says that these people actually get to eat first because they are the guards, so it benefits them. They are the first ones to see danger, so they can actually escape first. What these sentinel meerkats do is they just raise the alarm and then they go into their burrows. So that means that they can save themselves first. So don't you think here that their altruistic behavior is in some way benefiting them? That's the point made by the lecturer, but it essentially means the same thing. So it benefits them. So all the points made by the lecturer essentially tells us that so it benefits them. The next point she says is about the next point she mentions is about the alarm that they raise, right? The alarm that they raise can lead the group of meerkats to scatter about or gather, which focuses the predator's attention to them and not on the sentinel. So that's a big benefit. It is directly contradicting what is said in the passage. The passage says they may put themselves at risk because just by being the guard, just by agreeing to being the guard, right? But here it says no, agreeing to being the guard actually benefits them because they are taken out of attention, right? So this is the one that directly contradicts what is given in the passage. So ultimately, she concludes with a conclusion that is completely different or completely opposing to what is given in the passage. She says sometimes seemingly selfless acts can actually be a protective mechanism. She implies that. So if you see, when you get the 20 minutes writing time, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, organize your thoughts. Now, at this point, if you try to remember what was said in the lecture, you're going to waste time. So the ideal strategy to summarize for this particular part would be When you have 3 minutes, read. Be present in that moment. Just read very actively and make notes for the passage. Note down the important parts. And when you are listening to the audio file, again, be mentally present in that moment. Don't think about the passage at that time. Look and listen. Look on your paper. Look at your paper and quickly jot down the main points that would be contradicting the passage. And then, when you get the 20 minutes, finally at that time, utilize your first 5 minutes to organize these thoughts in this particular manner that I've just shown you. This is the one thing that will save you a lot of time during the exam. I hope this helps you guys. Now that you've seen that table, let's try and figure out how can we actually take that table and put it into an actual essay. What you see in front of you on your screen is a sample. By no means is it the complete sample, or I don't claim to say that you cannot write it in any other way. Don't take this as a template. But this can be a guideline that will help you figure out how to quickly write an essay in the actual exam without really bothering too much about remembering facts or remembering structures, right? This is a very simple structure to follow. What we can do is we can look at integrating the various elements of the essay in the right place. So you know that in an essay you will have an introduction, you will have a conclusion, and then you will have certain body paragraphs. In the essay, they said that you have to summarize what is given in the lecture, right? So you have to also contradict it with certain points that were mentioned in the passage. So you can start with a very simple beginning which says, while the passage states that, then you say whatever the topic is. In this case, the topic is altruistic behavior offers no gains to the performer of selfless acts. So this structure can kind of work for any essay that you plan to write. But in this case, I'm going to use this to explain this particular topic. So you can start your essay with while the passage states that, because you're always going to have a passage before the lecture. Then you state the topic. The blank is for the topic. The lecturer, however, expresses a different point of view. That's always going to be the case. You're never going to have a lecturer which has the same point of view as the passage. They will probably in most cases, they will always be opposing the points that are made in the passage. So this kind of helps you with a structure. You don't have to really remember what you're going to write. According to the lecturer, there might be unexplored benefits to being kind and selfless. Now, this is the lecturer's overall idea, the main idea which she states towards the end, right? So it's kind of fresh in your memory, you will remember that. So you can put that as the main idea. So if you see, the first paragraph is a very simple paragraph with just 2 sentences. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Then you move on to the next part, which is your first paragraph after the introduction. So you can use discourse markers like this here, what we have done here. So you can say first, second, or firstly, secondly. Another point that I want to make is, so something like that, which kind of marks the transition. So that's something easily, manageable. When you talk about the first paragraph after the introduction, think about the table that we made in the last slide. So you had 2 columns. One column talked about the points made in the passage and the other column talked about the points made in the lecture. So you can take the points made in the passage as your first main idea, the first point in that part. So you can use that and just convert it into a statement. First, the passage claims that, then whatever is your main idea in your topic. In this topic, it is people who perform selfless deeds certainly help others but get nothing in return. This was the gist of the whole first part of our passage, right? Once you make that point, always remember it's an element of good writing styles. It's a way of good writing that you always start with a topic sentence. So this main idea that you express here, that's your topic sentence. That kind of sets the tone for that whole paragraph, right? So once you express that, then you have to elaborate it with details always do that. Do not just write the main idea and then leave it at that, because you will get marked down for topic development. If you do not elaborate the ideas properly or give some kind of a further explanation, example, etc., you will not get full points for topic development. So now that you've given the first main idea, then you give some details supporting that idea. Here it says it provides the example of organ donors whose contribution can save lives, and yet they themselves do not get any rewards for their act. So this is nothing but a paraphrase of what you said in the main idea. So paraphrases can help you elaborate the same idea and add more flavor to it, add more flair to it. Once you explain what is given in the passage, then directly give the point that contributes that main idea. So it has to contribute the corresponding idea. So you talked about how organ donors, are not getting any benefits. Then you directly juxtapose that with the point made by the lecturer that really opposes that particular point. So the lecturer state, and use words like this always, however, this marks contrast, right? So you're contrasting what is given in the passage with what the lecturer is saying. So you will use these words. However, the lecturer states that, then give your opposing idea, main idea from the right side of that table, the first point. That's kind of matching the previous idea. So people who are selfless receive other non-material benefits. This is the opposing main idea. Whenever you give a main idea, try and follow it up with some kind of details that support this main idea that you've just spoken about. So you don't have to just leave the main idea hanging there. It looks very loose. She uses the examples of organ donors who often receive appreciation from their friends and family, which improves their self-esteem. So in these 4 lines, you have kind of summed up how the lecturer is contradicting the main idea given in the passage. So that's your point number 1. Always remember that you should have 1 point in every paragraph. Do not ever try to club too many ideas in 1 paragraph. It's kind of confusing to read. The reader doesn't get an idea of where things have started and where it's going on. So keep 1 main idea and 1 opposing idea with their relevant details in every paragraph. That's what you have to, that's a ground rule you can follow. When you look at the next paragraph, think of the second main idea. Now in this particular paragraph, we could come up with only 2 ideas per side of the column in the table. But it may so happen that the passage that you get in your exam, you probably have 3 ideas here and 3 ideas there. So that's okay, you will have an additional paragraph, you know what I mean. So you will then take the second main idea from that table. So here what we can do is start with the fact, second, the passage suggests that, what does it suggest? Altruistic people may in fact put themselves at risk. That's the second main point that the passage made. Now if you see that there is parallelism here, there are parallel structures here at work. In the first paragraph also, I started with what the passage said first, right? So I'm going to follow the same structure here. In the second paragraph also, I'm going to start with what the passage says first. It's confusing if you keep interchanging that. There's no proper flow or fluency to it. Once you give the second main idea, try and elaborate it a little bit with other details that support that. Why does the passage say that they put themselves at risk? And how does it say that? It says that by quoting examples of the sentinel meerkats, right? It goes into a lot of detail about how these meerkats are actually sacrificing themselves and so on and so forth. They even risk attracting the attention. So we have kind of clubbed all the details of that particular part in one or 2 sentences here in the details. So remember, details can be 1 or 2 sentences, or at the max around 3 sentences, never more than that. Once you give details for the second main idea, then you present how the lecturer basically, is opposing that particular point which is made in the passage. So you can talk about the second opposing idea. Now you think about the second point in the right side of the column of the table that you just saw. What you will be doing is you will be taking the second opposing idea and then you will be giving some more details about it. So in this case, the second idea that the lecturer was talking about was she was quoting data from a recent research. So this was new information and we started listening very carefully, if you remember. She presented data that said that sentinel meerkats actually are benefited by their behavior. And what are the details she gave? They eat before standing guard. They sense danger first so that they can escape before everyone else. Their alarm basically leads others to move quickly, which puts them at a higher risk. So everything that is going to benefit the meerkats, you're going to put it in one detail because that is related to this particular opposing idea, right? This gives a proper structure. Finally, you have to sum it up as well. What kind of a summary can you write? Most of the times, the summary is the most easiest part to write because you have now gone through the whole essay, you know what the points are, right? Let's follow a very simple structure. You can use markers like in summary, the passage argues that XYZ. So this template, remember, it applies to all your passages. In this case, you write the main idea plus details in this particular way. The passage argues that altruistic behavior is not beneficial to the performer as it does not give them anything in return. So this part is the main idea, not beneficial to the performer, and as it does not give them anything in return is the detail part that you are clubbing together in one sentence. And then in the next sentence, you are giving the lecturer's opinion. The lecturer contradicts that idea by saying that. Now this is the third main idea. The lecturer had so far not spoken about this, but based on point number 1 and 2, she finally arrives at her main conclusion that, after all, selfless acts are probably good and we still don't know the benefits of that, so we are not exploring them. That was her main idea. So you can end the essay actually with the summarizing the main idea of the lecturer, and then you can say how does she talk about that main idea. She does so by enumerating the benefits of the altruistic behavior among meerkats. So to come to that third main idea, she basically uses a lot of examples and new data that she knows from recent research. So the final paragraph kind of sums up your opinion or your expression of the lecturer's point of view. So I hope whatever I just explained to you makes sense to you, and try and apply this when you practice. It may work for you and it may not work for a lot of you, which is quite fine. You can come up with your own structure, but as long as you are writing in a systematic manner, your writing makes sense, and you are doing what the task requires of you to do, you're all set. Now let's move on to the next question type on the writing test, which is the independent type of an essay. In this essay, you will have to read a question statement that would be given to you. So while you're reading this will also actually be played out to you through your earphones. After listening to that, you will just have to write an essay explaining if you disagree or agree with the statement being made. When you are talking about agreeing or disagreeing with something, what do you think? Do you want to take a stand or do you want to be neutral? Let's explore this process a little bit more in the next few slides. You will be surprised to know that the 30 minutes that you get for writing this essay are actually not enough. And you would say, why? The previous task was just 20 minutes and you had to do so much in it. You had to listen to something and then you had to read a passage and you had to write. And why would 30 minutes not be enough? Let's look at that in the next few slides. This is how the question will appear to you. You will have some directions. So you will give yourselves 30 minutes And in those 30 minutes, you have to do three main things. You have to plan the whole essay, you have to write the essay, and you have to also revise the essay, which is something that you should not miss out on. It's one of the crucial things that will make or break your score. Typically, an effective response will contain minimum 300 words. Now, this prompt here says that this is the typical length of the essay, but I would suggest you follow this as a ground rule. If you write anywhere less than 300 words, you will be marked down. Keep that in mind. Now, it says here that this is a typical length, the 300 word limit, but I would still suggest that you follow this as a ground rule. Try and write at least a good 300 to 350 words, because that will be a good bet for you. That will make sure that you've covered all the points. The reading time is not actually 30 minutes. It's the whole question that gives you, 30 minutes time. So you get this kind of a statement here. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? And what is the statement? Television advertising directed towards young children aged 2 to 5 should not be allowed. Now, when you look at such a kind of a question, what will you do? Will you look at the question and just simply start writing? That would be counterproductive. You will have to think about the topic and you'll have to plan your essay well. That's the key. If you start writing simply by just looking at the topic, you may find yourself faltering right in the middle of the essay. That's something that a lot of our students have experienced. So look at the keywords. Television advertising, young children, should not be allowed. When you look at these keywords, you will get a gist of what you're supposed to do. Please note that topic development is the main thing in your writing task. If you don't develop the topic well, you will not get a good score at the end of the day. You have to use specific reasons and examples to support your answer. Which means if you're talking about television advertising not being good for children, you have to give examples and you have to give reasons to why you feel that way. So please keep that in mind. This is very important for your examination. Now let's take a look at what is actually expected from you. You will be getting a score on the scale of 0 to 5. What does this actually mean? Quite similar to your integrated writing task, you will be marked on this scale, and 0 means obviously the least and 5 is the highest score that you can get. When it comes to a good score though, you can typically think of it as somewhere that falls between 3 to say 4.5. 3 being an average score and 4.5 being on the higher side. What do you need to, get these kind of scores? To begin with, you will have to accurately identify the requirements of the task. So this was the same as the previous integrated task that we discussed. You also have to be well organized and coherent in writing your points, which is a given. There's no escaping that. You have to also display use of accurate vocabulary and idioms, which means no superficial language, no high-level vocabulary needed. If you know some good idioms that you can use which are related to the topic, that's well and good, but don't force yourself into using it. It looks very unnatural otherwise. You have to use a lot of syntactic variety, which means you don't want to be writing the same kind of sentences. You want to bring in some variety by introducing some simple sentences, some complex sentences, etc. And also you have to write in the appropriate tone. Now, the independent writing section will give you a task which is all about your opinion, right? It's not about summarizing what a professor said. It's about what you feel. So yes, in this task, you can use a little bit of a personal touch, but do not mistake that to be an informal tone. That's a fatal mistake that you can do. Do not use slang or do not use contractions or anything which kind of makes this very informal to say. try and use a personal tone. You can definitely use personal examples, that's completely all right, but maintain the professionalism, maintain the correct way of writing or the standard way of writing. There are some tips which I would like to kind of emphasize here as being integral to your independent section. So for example, when you're looking at a task which says, do you agree or do you disagree, right? A lot of times students are uncomfortable, highly uncomfortable with taking a side. They feel like they're going to be judged. So don't worry about it actually. The examiner is not going to judge you based on the basis of what side you choose. That's not the point. What they are going to judge you though is, can you support whatever side you take? Can you properly elaborate and make points about the sides that you have taken or the opinion that you are supporting? So what you can do in this case is definitely choose a side. Do not sit on the fence. Do not be neutral. Always make sure that your point of view comes across as quite evident in the essay. Another thing that you might want to understand is you will need to list down at least 3 reasons in support of your opinion. Now you might ask me, why 3 reasons? What is so important about this number? Remember, in this task you have to write around 300 words. So if you write say a 5-paragraph essay and you write an introduction and a conclusion, you can have 3 paragraphs which could kind of have 150 to 200 words or even just 50 words, and then you will still reach the target of 300 words. So this really is about developing your topic. If you agree to writing 300 words, then you would need at least 3 reasons to make sure that you are developing the topic, well enough. Otherwise, it would sound like you're beating around the bush or using the same point repetitively or just elaborating too much on the same point, right? So try and list down 3 reasons right in the beginning, even before you start typing your answer. Once you write these 3 reasons, then try and think of examples to support those 3 reasons. So remember, the question said you have to use specific examples or details to support your reasons. So just giving the reasons for why you support that particular opinion, that's not going to work. You have to give enough examples. That's how you will get your points for topic development. Another thing to remember is try and think of a counter argument that might jeopardize your position. So for example, if you believe that very young children should not be exposed to television advertising, you have to also play the devil's advocate and you have to think of what could be the opposing point. Is there something in favor of actually allowing them to watch these advertisements? Can that argument jeopardize your argument? You have to think on those lines as well. So you really need to be able to think on both sides as well, right? That is the hallmark of someone who is a creative and a logical thinker. Next, make sure you develop your points well with explanations, examples and details. I cannot emphasize enough on this. This is the most important thing. So the reason why we do 2 and 3 is so that you can actually use them to develop your points. A lot of times what happens is when you're brainstorming, you write all these reasons and you think of all these examples, but when you're actually writing the essay down, you are unable to incorporate them in the essay. So that's not a productive use of your time. So be very, very mindful of that. Do not give the same points in different words. And this is a mistake that a lot of people do. They kind of think that these are 2 different points that they have written down, but if you carefully look at your points and evaluate them, you will figure out that they're actually 1 point. They're talking about one and the same thing, just in different words. So don't present your points like that. The examiners are pretty smart. They understand when you're beating around the bush. That means that you don't have any kind of content to talk about, and that's why you're just repeating the points. Remember, there is no right or wrong answer. So even if I give you a sample answer right now, or if I give you a structure, that's just a benchmark, or you can take it as a guideline. There is never a right or a wrong way to write an essay, right? We learned that in school. I hope this has helped you. Now let's move on and look at an actual method of writing the essay. Now here we are trying to begin the process of writing this essay. How did you write an essay when you were in school? Do you remember that process? Do you remember your teachers telling you, now you need to write an introduction, you need to brainstorm your points, develop your points, write as much as you can, and then write a conclusion, write a summary? It's kind of the same thing, but this is much more easier because you do have a cookie cut structure here, I would say. Let's look at what structure you can tentatively follow in the examination to save your time. When you're looking at the writing task, the independent writing task, the introduction actually is the easiest to write. Everything is given to you right then and there in the question, right? So you could write the first sentence with a general statement. You don't have to be very fancy about it. You don't have to go all general knowledge with this particular thing. You just can write a very, very generic first line just to break the ice. When you have a conversation with someone, don't you think about breaking the ice first, or do you just come to the point? Right? It's the same thing with the essay. So you could look at a very general statement like, advertisements are a powerful medium of mass communication that can make or break the perceived value of a brand. Now, I'm not giving my opinion anywhere in this line, right? So this general statement could work for any opinion that I choose to take. Our topic was, should very young children be shown advertisements that are targeted towards them? And this line, advertisements are a powerful medium, this line definitely does not give out my opinion. It does not talk about what side I plan to take. But this is just the beginning. This is a formal way of introducing the topic, which is advertisements. Then in the next sentence, you can start with your coming to the point part. How do you come to the point? You introduce the actual topic. And for doing that, you can use a very powerful technique which we call as paraphrasing. You can look at the prompt that is given to you in the question, right? And you can just twist and turn it around to make it a sentence that looks like you have written it. So the question prompt was, advertisement should not be shown to very young children, or should they be shown to young children? So do you agree? They should be shown. So do you agree or do you disagree? That was the prompt. So you could rewrite it kind of in this way. Some people believe that it is important to ban advertisements directed towards young children, especially those between the ages of 2 to 5. Right? So this is kind of paraphrasing the topic. We have just introduced an element of very general generality here when we say some people. Then what you could do is you could start with your sentence 3, which is the crux. This is what you are getting tested for. How can you state your opinion? Not what your opinion is, mind you, but how can you state it? You can use different structures for it. Here I have used this particular style of writing. This essay will talk about why such advertisements are harmful. Now when you use these words, why such advertisements are harmful, you are giving your opinion that you think that these advertisements are harmful. That's why you're going to talk about it in this essay, right? So this is one way of kind of introducing your opinion. Some students would also say, I agree to the statement. That's also a good way of writing it. There's no right or wrong way. This is just one of the ways in which you can introduce your opinion. But if you follow this structure, you see that the first sentence can be a general statement. The second sentence can be rephrasing the topic. And then in the third statement, you come to your opinion. So that's how this whole thing can be, put into a structure that you can easily remember in the examination. Now let's move on to writing the para 1, which is the paragraph immediately after your introduction. Let's look at what structure can we follow on a very general level. When you look at para 1, you have to start with stating your reasons, right? The question prompt very clearly told you that you need to give reasons and examples to support your opinion. So you can actually start with your reasons always, because you can then always follow it up with an example, right? That's a good structure to remember actually without any effort. So you can state your first reason, right? Young children have highly impressionable minds and cannot differentiate between good and bad. Is this statement a good reason for supporting your opinion? What was your opinion again? That you shouldn't be showing advertisements to young children. So is this a reason? Yes. The reason could be something very simple. It doesn't have to be very complicated. Okay? It just has to justify as a reason for saying that no, you shouldn't be showing these ads to kids. So when you write your reason one, that kind of sets the tone for the whole paragraph. Then once you finish stating your reason, you have to then explain that reason. Just stating the reason is not enough. You will not get marks for developing the topic if you just state the reason, right? So you have to explain it well. Hence, in absence of this knowledge, they cannot be expected to understand the full implications of the products being sold to them, right? This is an explanation. They have impressionable minds. They cannot differentiate between good and bad. So this point can naturally follow from this reason. You cannot expect these kids to understand the full implications of what is being sold to them. They will never understand whether it is good or bad for them. So this explanation is actually a paraphrase of the reason, saying things in other words basically to elaborate and simplify the whole thing. Once you finish your reason and your explanation, you can then move on to the next sentence, which is some kind of an example. Try and give some kind of an example to support your reason. This kind of builds a vivid imagery. It kind of builds a picture in the reader's mind. So now that we have talked about how young children are impressionable, you can give an example of when you saw a child being negatively affected by the impression created by, say, an advertisement. So when I was brainstorming before writing the essay, this is what came to my mind. I started thinking about when have I seen a child getting negatively affected. So you would see that, in and around. This is your personal opinion. You would have seen that in your everyday life. Your friends' children. So you would have seen how they are affected. So you could take that example, that personal example, and incorporate it in that essay. That's completely all right. So you could say something like, when children observe their favorite sports person endorsing a health drink that helps them perform well and win matches, the child only sees one aspect of the product. When I'm giving that example, this part, the child sees only one aspect of the product. This actually is supporting the point that was made in the reason. They cannot differentiate between good and bad. Why cannot they differentiate? Because they see only one aspect. Then you can also use words like evidence shows. You don't really have to show any evidence though. You can use these as just a style of writing. Evidence shows that many of these so-called children's health drinks contain high amounts of sugar, which can eventually be harmful for them. So again, this supports the point that they don't understand what is good and bad. They just see something and they want to have it. You can conclude your reason, explanation and example by one concluding statement. Please note that this is not the concluding statement for the whole essay. This is the concluding statement only for that paragraph, just to support that point, that children have young children have impressionable minds and they cannot differentiate between good and bad. So to conclude that, you can say later on when they grow up, they'll understand it and then they will understand whether it's beneficial for them or not. Right now is not the right time. This is what you are concluding with, which is logical enough. You don't look like someone who has an extreme opinion on something, right? You are kind of giving a logical explanation there. So that's completely fine. Now, as I said, you have to cover that requirement, which is the 300 word requirement. So you cannot just stop at one point. And how much can you elaborate on that one point, right? So you have to somehow introduce new points now. So remember that whenever you are introducing new points, you are actually talking about a new paragraph there. So now in para 2, after your introduction, you can talk about your reason number 2. So remember, we had brainstormed 3 reasons why you should not show these ads to these children. So now we are actually going to start with reason number 2 and use words like these: secondly, moreover, right? Furthermore. These words kind of mark the transition and help you understand where the thought process is going. You understand that this is just the second part in the same thought process. The direction has not changed, or there is no contradiction from what we have been saying till now. So this is just going in the same direction when you use such words. So please use them. They are hallmarks of good writing. The reason that you will be mentioning here, this is one of the reasons. You could mention a different reason, that's completely up to you. A young child who is under the influence of advertisements may make unreasonable demands from her parents. When you're brainstorming and writing down these reasons, always try and go back and check whether are these valid reasons for saying that no, you shouldn't be showing these ads to children. Look at this particular sentence in itself without the context of everything else. Does this reason seem enough to you to say that yes, the advertisement should not be shown? So this could be a good reason. Now, just because you state the reason, your job is not done. You have to now explain this as well. Why do they make unreasonable demands? That's because they do not have the mental faculties to regulate their emotions. Now we are talking about a different thing here, right? Advertisements play with the emotions of the children, and these children simply are not capable of dealing with that. And this may lead to temper tantrums. Now, when you say temper tantrums, the immediate thing that should come to your mind is an example. Haven't you seen children in the shopping malls sitting on the floor and throwing a temper tantrum? Everyone has seen that, right? And how embarrassed their parents are. What you could do is you could take that example from your personal life that you've seen somewhere and use it in the essay. You can, for example, say it is very common for children to show rage while shopping with their parents. They have often been seen to sit on the floor of shopping malls demanding a particularly attractive toy that they had seen on television. The parents may not be able to afford such toys, and yet they may have to pander to these emotions out of embarrassment. Is that a good thing? No, not really. So that's reason enough to actually not show these advertisements to these children in the first place, right? That kind of justifies that. Then you could conclude this whole paragraph saying that thus these advertisements could lead to unpleasant situations for parents. This word here, thus, is a conclusion marker, which all of us know. So you can use that to mark conclusions within the essay as well. So remember, every paragraph has a reason, an explanation, an example that supports the reason, and a conclusion that kind of sums up that particular paragraph. Now let's look at how you can develop the third point. When you're looking at para 3, the structure is quite similar, so that has not changed. Make sure that the idea that you're introducing now is not the same one as the one that you introduced in, say, para 1 or para 2. This is a tricky one. Sometimes students don't get enough ideas and then they repackage the same ideas as a different paragraph, and examiners can understand that when you do that. So keep that in mind. Let's look at how you can tackle this. Obviously, when you have to follow the same format, you will look at stating your reason number 3 that you had kept in your on your notepad, and then you convert that into a sentence. So for me in this case, it was, more importantly, these advertisements are designed to encourage action taking, which may not be appropriate material for young minds. Remember, every ad has a call to action: buy this product or click on this link, right? That is designed in a way to psychologically make you want to do something, take an action, go to a mall or visit a website, right? When children watch these advertisements, they don't have any kind of an understanding of the fact that they have to take those actions only if they want to do the, only if they want the product. Sometimes it may so happen that they're not interested in the product, but just the fact that the advertisement is so enticing and so captivating, they try and take the actions that they see on television. You can elaborate this particular point by saying that these children do not have those mental faculties, and they cannot ignore the fact that advertisements are not reality. Now, how is this point different from the previous points that you have done? Here we are talking about something which is related to their mental level, right? This is an elaboration, this is not a point. So it's okay to use some parts of your previous points when you're elaborating, as long as this elaboration supports the reason should be different, right? So you are talking about, more importantly, these advertisements are designed to encourage action taking. So now you know that this paragraph, para 3, is it's going to be all about action taking and how it is not good for the children, right? So you can state an example. When young children see advertisements showing superheroes performing stunts, they may attempt the same and hurt themselves. Haven't we heard of this? Time and again we read about this in the newspapers, where some child has fallen off a cliff or done something stupid just because they saw their superhero doing that in an advertisement. So be very careful and incorporate these kind of interesting elements in your essay to make it colorful and to give it that personal touch. You can then conclude that paragraph by giving that concluding thus statement. Thus, advertisements may pose a serious threat to life and limb. Is that a good enough reason to say that yes, you should not show these advertisements to children? Of course it is. If this is not a good enough reason, I don't know what is. Now let's come to finally understand how to write a good conclusion. A lot of students would find this quite boring because I'm going to give you a very simple cookie cut method. But that's good news when you're in an examination situation where you don't have a lot of time, right? When you're writing a conclusion, look at a proper structure like sentence 1, sentence 2 and concluding sentence. If you know exactly what you're going to write in each of them, then that's going to be very helpful to you. Look at sentence 1. It says you can use an overall recap sentence. When I say overall recap sentence, understand that now you are concluding the whole essay. This is the final paragraph to the essay. So you can definitely have a very general statement which kind of summarizes whatever you have said right now, but in a very general manner. So you can say, it is evident that advertisements aimed at young children can do more harm than good. So after you've said everything, after you've given your opinion in the first paragraph, explained paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, it is only right that you come to a conclusion and come to say that yes, it's not good for children. So you can start your concluding paragraph with that main idea. This is the topic sentence as such for the conclusion. Then you can again summarize para 1, para 2 and 3 in one sentence this time. Now you're going to club the gist of these 3 paragraphs in one sentence. And how do you do that? You can use this kind of a sentence. They can lead to illogical decision making, emotional dysregulation, and even threat to life. Now, these 3 are not separate things, right? You can say that emotional dysregulation can lead to illogical decision making. So they are connected. But in the context of this essay that we wrote just now, we had 3 different points wherein each paragraph had a central theme. Paragraph 2 had a central theme where we had the children making some illogical decisions. Paragraph 3 had a theme where the children were taking some kind of an emotional beating. And when it comes to paragraph 4, we talked about the threat to their life. So in this concluding paragraph, we have to show that now we are summarizing. So if you have to summarize 3 paragraphs in one sentence, this is one way you could do it, by just taking the keywords from each paragraph. Finally, you can use the last concluding statement, which kind of restates your opinion. A good conclusion is something that will give you the feeling of coming back full circle. It will close all loose ends basically. So you have to make sure that your final sentence does that. You could use things